Hey everybody, welcome to the third episode of the Foundation First Fitness Show. If you guys haven't checked out episode 1 and 2, definitely head there right now. They tie in very well into what we're going to be talking about today. Now, today we are talking about something that's really important to me, that's been probably one of the driving forces in my career, and has been one of the specialties in my career, and that is talking about asymmetries. Asymmetry is essentially when you have one side or one movement that's a lot better than the other, and your body's not moving symmetrically, not moving smoothly. Now, not to get too technical into it, I want to stay very superficial because I want everyone to kind of understand and be able to take something away from this. One of the times that you'll actually notice this happening, where it's going to be very noticeable, is generally when you're at the gym. You're going to be noticing that, I'm a lot stronger on my right side than my left side. I can perform, more reps on this side than I can with that side. I feel like I can jump higher with this side than on that side, and I'm more comfortable, and so on and so forth. Those are all basic indicators of an asymmetry, where you have one side that's stronger, one side that's weaker. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a dramatic difference or that there's a dramatic imbalance. Sometimes it's not even much of an imbalance in the muscles as much as it is a limitation in the movement that's causing the body to withhold and hold back from going as hard as it can. So let me get into a couple of those examples so I can break it down and you guys can better understand that. The most important one is when you have a limitation in the movement due to a kind of blockage or a lack of mobility at a specific joint. What's going to happen is the body's going to be limited. It won't be able to move in that specific pattern. So what's going to happen is your body's going to restrict its movement, and through restriction of the movement, you're going to become, that restriction is going to get basically your range of motion is going to get slowly limited and get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until you really can't move, and then we have an injury. Now, the appearance of that is going to be very much seen in when you're doing movements that aren't weighted. So if you're doing a movement and it's not weighted and you see that there's an issue, that's when you start cueing into, I have a limitation at the joint. So a big exercise where you'll notice this big issue is if you're doing a squat and you go down and you see your entire body weight shift to the right or shift to the left, and you go, I don't even have any weight on my shoulders, this shouldn't be happening. Well, you're right. If you can't physically correct it and you see that, I keep going to that side, but it just doesn't feel the same, then there might be a limitation on the other side, and the joint on the other side is not allowing you to get into that position. So what you could do is start targeting that joint, which is I'm going to give you some tactical approaches that you can use to take care of that a little bit later on. Now, talking about muscle imbalances. So if one leg is stronger than the other. Now, this is probably the more common one that you'll witness, and the reason for that is a lot of us spend majority of our time in a specific position or doing something repetitively, and we dominate to one side as opposed to the other. This holds true for athletes as well as it does for individuals. Let me explain. When you're an athlete, let's say you're a tennis player, you're always swinging predominantly to one side, and your backhand is, let's say your forehand is a lot stronger for a tennis player, a backhand is not as strong, and therefore, you're going to spend a lot less time working on that backhand. You're going to favor that forehand, especially when you're an amateur. When you become professional, that difference starts closing down, which therefore decreases that risk of injury. Now, on the other side of things, when you're the average person just getting into work, going into the gym and training, generally at work, you might do something that's repetitive, whether it be picking a box up, putting it on the shelf, sitting at a desk with your body turned towards a specific screen on a computer, and your body's going to start developing more of a comfort zone pattern, and you're going to favor that all the time. This will then carry over into the your athletic, activities, going to the gym, running, whatever, and it's going to start compounding that, and that's when it becomes an issue. So if you have a muscular imbalance, one of the quick ways to know if you do have a muscular imbalance is you don't notice any movement issues when you're doing an exercise. Let's say you squat without weight or you lunge without weight. Both sides look pretty smooth. Both movements are very clear. I'm just going to side note here before I go into this any further. I will be talking solely about the lower body. The reason I will be doing that is because it's a lot easier to discuss the lower body because everything is very superficial. The muscles are very easy to talk about, and it's not as detailed as the shoulder. There's a lot more going on, It's a lot more enclosed in the capsule. It's very hard to kind of discuss the nit-grit details without losing you guys or losing some of you guys. So going back to that, if you don't notice anything different in the movements, they look very symmetrical, and it's very clear to you and potentially someone else looking at you that there's no issues there, and it's only appearing when you start loading up pretty significantly. That's when you notice it's a muscular imbalance. Now, it's not a terrible situation because it's very easily corrected for, but it is something you want to pay attention to, and here's why you want to pay attention to it. If you read, I've been reading a lot of research papers on injuries in the last 5-6 years, and one of the main concerns or main factors or main numbers that everyone really talks about when they discuss symmetrical imbalances or asymmetries is they're looking at a 10% deficit. When there is a 10% difference between one side to the other, so one side is producing 10% more force than the other, then the rate or the likelihood of injury skyrockets. And once you pass that 10, if it starts shooting up really fast, your likelihood of injury is much higher, and we want to pull away from that, and we want to shrink that number below 10. If we can, let's get it below 5. Generally speaking, when it's between 5 and 10, for the most part, you can kind of see it once you're loading it that there's somewhat of an imbalance. Anything over 10, it's clear as day that you can see that there's a difference in movement. Anybody can see it. You don't need a trained eye. Anything under 5, now you need a trained eye. Someone has to be very, very, very used to looking at that exact movement to be able to pick it apart. Now, getting into the treatment or how to kind of address this and how to approach it, it's a very much a couple of, basically a 4-step process. The first step is localizing the problem, figuring out where it's coming from. Whether it be the source of the issue is, like, let's say the muscles are not strong or the joint stuck, as well as locate what's potentially causing that to happen. Is it something you're doing at work? Is it something that happened in the past that you never thought about? Was it an injury that happened 5-6 years ago where you hurt one leg and then you spent 3.5 to 5 weeks, sitting on one side, and then all of a sudden you're like on that 6 weeks, you're like, oh, I can start rebalancing, and now you're walking with kind of a limp, but you don't notice because you kind of clear it up to the point where it's not very noticeable. That might be an issue. You might have to get that addressed as well. So once you've figured out where the problem is and what it is, whether it's joint, muscle, or previous injury, look at figuring out how you're going to treat around it. Now, a lot of people kind of hone in on the joint or the muscle that it's actually that's pretty much the culprit, and they kind of forget. They kind of, how do I say this? They put their blinders on and just zoom right in on that one issue and just treat it right there. What you want to do is you want to kind of head around it. You want to spend some time working around it. So let's say your hamstring you notice that your legs are a little sore, your legs are a little weaker on your left side than on your right side. Well, then you don't just want to treat and start spending some time and do some spending a little bit more attention or paying a little bit more attention to that, just the quad and the hamstring. You want to work above it and below it as well, because there might be something that's kind of lingering above and below it, and you might want to address that may help you speed up the process. So once you've figured out what it is, start working around it. And if you head back to episode 2, I talk a lot about one of the ways to do that, which is soft tissue work. It's a very useful tool that you guys can use to help reduce the likelihood of that imbalance from happening. And the way to do that is, like I said, spending some time rolling out above it, below it, and all the muscles around it so that you can clear up any potential adhesions or scar tissue that may have built up that you may not have noticed. So once you've cleared that out of the way, now we can go to activating. So step 3 is reactivating the muscles around it. Generally, when a muscle is not able to fire, it might be because the muscles above it or around it are pinned and blocked. And the way to kind of get around that and stop that from becoming a serious issue is by reactivating the muscles that are stabilizing the joints. So if you have a hip joint that's stuck and you can't move, then you want to release the hip joint. You want to activate the muscles that are in the hip joint once you've released all the muscles that are around it as well. So if you head back to, I think, week 5 of my 8 Weeks of Stronger core on Instagram, you can definitely see that. You can see some of the exercise I talk about there, which is the single leg bridge. If I'm not mistaken, is in week 5. It could be in week 4. Check out both those weeks. See how we slip that in there. Week 4, week 5, and you'll see that exercise. Hip bridge and bird dog are great exercise to activate the muscles at the hip to kind of create some movement. Once you've done that, and that activating doesn't just mean that you have a blockage in the hip. It could be something that could be an imbalance, but you want to give yourself the best chance to move enough and to stabilize that joint enough to be able to actually load it the same as you would on the other side. So once you've done that, start documenting everything. Start paying attention to what's actually happening. Are you noticing a difference from one side to the other? After about a week or two, if that difference doesn't start getting smaller, we might not be heading in the right direction and we have to start looking elsewhere. What I would suggest at that point, go to see a professional, spend some money, get it treated professionally, just in case. You don't want to wait until it gets past 10 and the next minute you know you got a tendonitis and you're out for a couple of weeks trying to deal with it. It's better to start taking care of that now because you can still continue what you're doing. We just have to shift our attention to the weaker side. So if you have a muscular imbalance, what you could do is just take a set out of the right side and put it onto the left side. And now you start rebalancing that strength. And in a couple of weeks, you redistribute that set evenly and we're moving properly. Okay, guys? If you guys have any questions, please leave me a comment, send me a message, get in touch with me, however way you want. I'm sure that if you guys have any questions, you leave it in the comments. I'm sure many other people have that same question and would love to know the answer. Until next time, guys, keep building that foundation.